pen tool creates vector paths. Now if that doesn't mean anything to you, let me first describe how I would use it. Firstly, I use it when I need to select an object or a subject without any fuzziness or any soft edge. I would then make a closed path, as you see here, all around the subject, which I can then load as a selection, and then I can soften it if I need to. In some cases I might load the path repeatedly for different purposes. The second way to use a path is to make an open-ended path, which can be stroked with a brush tool, using whatever dynamics I choose and using the colour and opacity that suits the purpose. That purpose might be, for example, an eyelash, the creation of an eyelash, or it could be used for hair, or just to give something an edge if it lacks definition. But most often this is my tool of choice for making a quick selection. You're probably going to find that it's a bit like learning to swim. As you can see, I already have a path here, and I've already really done the work that I meant to do with the path. Now I'm going to just click in the blank area here of the paths panel, and you see the path goes away. Turning that path back on again, you now only see the actual line around the path. Previously you saw a path with segment points on it. That was because I'd actually activated the path properly. What I'm going to do now is click in this empty area again to hide the path, and I'm going to create a new path, and that's done on the flyout menu and new path here. I'm going to now set up the pen tool so it works properly. This is where most people actually go wrong from the start. P for pen tool, just checking that I've got the actual pen tool selected here. The other thing that could go wrong is that you might start out with a shape, and I'm just going to start out doing that so you can see what happens with the wrong tool, and you can see here that you get a sort of shape here. So that's not what we want. If that does happen to you, what we do then is just delete that layer and go back to square one. What you want is this icon, which you can just about see has a little pen nib in it. The second thing that's very important is the geometry options, as it's called. It's just the pen options here, rubber band. Make sure you tick that on. That's not on by default, I believe, so it's worth ticking that on, because that will give you a preview as you work. Also, I like to keep the auto add delete on here. Now, starting out, I'm going to just click, a single click, to set my first point, and the preview here, the rubber band, gives me a straight line. The strength of this tool is actually that it can give me nice bendy lines, and I start my work by finding a point and just clicking and dragging. This is done by simply estimating a point, so it takes a little bit of experience to get to this. I'm going to then click, drag and let go, and as you can see here, on these couple of points that I've done, I already have these handles, and I'm going to make another point here, and you see this handle is longer than the previous one. Generally, when I make a long segment, it's a long handle, a short segment, a short handle. Let me just move down a little bit here. Click, drag and release is my motion. You can also see that I'm kind of taking a little bit of a shortcut around these bends, and I'm trying to make the segments fit directly on the line instead of swinging them a lot, which is probably what you've already discovered can happen if you have just tried it once or twice. You try and actually match up to the line. I'm going very slowly so you can see here. So it's a motion of click, drag and let go. That'll be your mantra as you work. Click, drag in one motion and let go, and click, drag and let go. You get a feeling for the length of the segments as you go along. Beginners tend to work with shorter segments, and people who've done this for a long time will tend to take shortcuts with a bit of confidence and cut through like this. Now I've been clicking and dragging and letting go. Now when I get into a corner, all I need to do is click. and I can then change direction here. Again, I'm going to create a little bit of a wobble here. First I'm just going to come around this corner here and show you how a lot of people will go wrong. Making a segment too long or swinging it round like this. And to backtrack, I'm going to press the Alt and Command and Z, 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 and I go back to where I was. Click, drag and release. Click, drag and release. And here we are in a really sort of flat area. Click, drag and release. So I'm making longer segments. Click, drag and release. And a shorter. And as I come up to the toes, I'm using slightly shorter segments here. Oops, that's a point that I didn't mean to make, and I ended up doing just a click there. So Command Z to undo that point. I can now start editing a little bit as I go along. I can hold down the Command key and pull out the handle to get a better fit for my segment here. Click in the corner there. On top of the toe, I'm just going to find roughly the middle, click, drag, and you see the handle there cutting across. Click, drag, release, and that's a very short segment because I want to steeply go around the corner. Click in the corner there, click, drag, and a short one, click, drag, and a slightly longer one, click, drag, and click in the corner. Click, drag, and release, and I thought maybe I could go all the way, but I can't, so click, drag, and click again, and click, drag, and release. Either you try and do it as accurately as possible as you work, which is what I'm trying to do, or you edit afterwards. The actual editing process is something we're going to work on the next file. So I'm going to just edit ever so slightly as I go along here, using the Command key. For example, if I make a bend here, you can see that it doesn't really fit the shape. You can then press down the Command key and shift the point and place it in position here. You can also, if you need to, add a segment point. If you see the little plus sign there, I'm going to click on my line, and that adds a point, and it also gives it a handle on either side. Obviously we want to keep that smooth. I can also reposition this point. And as you can see how I get a tiny little circle and a pen nib to indicate that I've gone full circle. So clicking in there, and that has given me a full path, a joined path as we say. There's one little detail that I've left out. I'm just going to zoom into 100% and show you what that is. I've obviously not done the toes, so I'm going to click and click, drag, click and click, drag and click again to create a little hole there. Click, click and click, click, drag and click again, because this is so tiny. I actually just noticed here before I leave this image that I created this as a work path. I didn't actually use the path 2. So to avoid any overwriting of this path, I'm going to save the path and call it feet, so that I make sure it doesn't get overwritten if I, for example, make another little path for something else. I'm now going to the path exercise. Here I have no path to start with, so new path, path 1, I'll call that face. This is a much more graphic file, so it's maybe easier to start with. I'm going to zoom right in and start literally with a click. And this could be join the dots, you know, if they were all straight, I could just click, 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 click. I'm going to click a second point to keep my straight line. I'm then going to estimate a sort of shortcut. How can I cut through here and make a bend? So I'm guessing just about here, and I pull the handle out, and you get equal handles on either side, and then I click in the corner there. Now as you can see, I've got a handle there that's giving me a segment that bumps out a little bit too much. So I'm going to hold down the Command key and push the handle in just to make it a bit shorter. So now it fits on the line. Again, I can just click without dragging, click and click again. This is almost like using the polygonal lasso tool. But when I get to this point again, the Bezier curve that I want here, I have to drag it and then click in the corner. Click, drag slightly for a bend and click. I'm now going to click and drag. Keep it really smooth. These are called smooth points, incidentally. So click, drag and click, drag. Using as few segments as possible because I know that I want to edit this a little bit later, and that's when it's really going to catch me if I've got too many different segments. Click, click, drag and click, click, drag, click, click, drag, click, drag a little bit. Here's a little bump and joined up. I'm going to now turn off this first path, so you have no layer there. All you see there is my path. And now the second layer, I'm turning that on. Now for this one, I'm going to show you a little bit how you edit a path. I'm going to start with the Command key and just click on the path to activate it. Now I could use the editing tools and the path selection tools, the direct selection tools, but instead I'm going to use the tools that you would normally use on the fly. So I'm telling you which Command key I'm holding down. Command key, literally the Command key, to lift up this segment here. Again, I'm going to move, holding down the Command key, I'm moving the path and moving the actual segments into the place where I want them. Now if I had, for example, a segment that was doing that, then I would use the front end to push it up and the back end perhaps to just shorten it or lengthen it. Going to this long segment here, I'm going to pull it down, and here I'm just literally using the handle, and I need to put another point in here. So if you see that small plus, to put a point in and set that back on the line. One thing that is difficult for beginners is sometimes to see the difference between the segments and the handles. If you look very closely, you can actually see that the segments are clear inside, whereas the handles are black. It's very subtle. So I'm just literally holding down the Command key all the time here, really just mimicking how it would work if I'm editing a path on the fly, which I really believe in, because otherwise you get a whole big job like this to do. It's much easier actually to edit as you go along. I'm going to shorten this corner here, just pulling the corner in, and this segment here, and a little bit in there, and pulling that in here. Now you see suddenly I've got a bump here that I don't need. So let's zoom a little bit further in and show you what we need to do here. What I've got is a bendy curve here that I don't really want, and I need to make that into a corner. So what I'm going to do is press down the Option key and click on this corner here, and that makes it into a corner point. You're going to get some practice of doing that later on another path, so I'm not going to repeat that here. In this case, I'm going to do exactly the opposite, but with the same tool. I'm going to hold down the Option key and make this corner point into a smooth point by just dragging out a handle like this. Obviously I can adjust the handle using the Command key, adjust the back handle and the front handle separately. Unfortunately, Adobe have made these paths very, very thin now, so it's actually quite hard to see them in a tutorial. So I'm going to turn off this for a second so you can see the new path. Okay, now I'm just going to turn off the path as you see it here. Clicking in the empty area here, the path momentarily goes away. I'm going to click a new layer on and just turn on the layer with the red here. This is going to be a new kind of path. We're starting with a click and a click drag as before, and then we're going to end up down here. Maybe edit the point a little bit on the fly just to get the handle long enough to swing it properly there. I'm going to also make sure that this point is well positioned. I think I might need to zoom in a little bit here, and click, 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 literally join the dots to make a sort of, I don't know, a necklace or the edge of a jumper or something like that, a pattern. This is completely made up. It's not designed on anything in particular. So zooming out and click, drag and let go. And there I was a bit inaccurate, so I'm going to just push this back on its path. Here we end up with an open path. We're not going to join this path. So what you just need to do, I know you get this long line, but just click in the paths panel, just in the empty area here. Okay, now I'm going to turn off this neck start and turn on the neck edited, which is red. Zoom in, and we're going to change all those straight points into bendy points. First, actually, I'm going to just command click on the path to activate it, and then Alt or Option drag, Option drag, Option drag, and try not to do this. So you work really as clean as possible. This is quite disciplined work. Option and drag. So this is a good little exercise for turning a corner point into a straight point. You are probably going to find that this is a bit like riding a bicycle or swimming. So persevere. This will really save you lots of time. I know professional retouchers who don't like to use a path, but they really could be saving a lot of time if they use paths. So go ahead, get used to it, and you'll find that it's one of the tools that you really can't live without.